And good evening, everybody, and welcome to the San Diego Historical Games Convention Spring Deployment. I'm Moe from Moe's Game Table, and I'm joined by my co-host, Harold Buchanan, the con-father of San Diego Historical Games Convention. And we're going to kick things off tonight with our little after-hour show here on Thursday night. We have a couple of special guests, as you can tell right now, the matching Fire in the Lake brothers, Falco and Mark. Welcome, everybody.
Great to be here.
Thanks for having us, Mo.
Oh, thanks for coming on, and thanks for the convention again. I mean, it was great last year, and it's great to have it again, and a ton of great events that'll be going on for everybody to enjoy being it. We can't meet in person just yet, but good thing is we're seeming to go in the right direction.
That's right. We've got a lot going on, right? Con starts tomorrow morning. Actually, con started, a couple of hours ago. Dan had his all-Canadian crew on for interviews. It was great. You and I have the honor of having the Fire in the Lake twins with us tonight. And it's
often mistaken for one another, by the way.
That's why I shave.
Was it coincidence?
That's how you can tell.
Was it coincidence that you wore the same shirt, or happenstance, or did you call each other before?
I wear this shirt all the time. I haven't taken this shirt off since 2015.
Yeah, well,
It used to be white.
There were only 25 of these shirts, and I had them made right when the game was coming out of WBC, and I went to a T-shirt guy in Cape Cod to get them made. Roger McGowan did all the stuff the guy needed to make the shirt. So thank you, Roger. And yeah, look at that back, huh? Sweet.
Very nice.
And so obviously Volko has his copy. Nice.
Yeah, somebody's been working out too. Look at that.
Oh yeah, he's looking buff, man. Look at him.
Why are you laughing?
I've been working out like a madman. I tell you, the COVID has been the best thing for my health in a long time. I've been working out like every single day. I got a rowing machine. I've been doing this like app. I mean, believe me, I get plenty of exercise.
I like what Jeff says. He says he bets the surprise guests are going to be very surprised to be guests. They were very surprised that they both wore the same shirt.
Well, no, I wasn't surprised. I guessed. I was my.
No, plan. You were ready. You were ready.
Mark called it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the convention. What was the lead up to this one? What got you deciding on doing this in May, Harold?
Well, we had a convention in November, which is our standard timing for the face-to-face convention, and because we couldn't have it together, we went ahead and did something online. It turned out great, and it was great from a number of different perspectives. It was great because it was a great event for a lot of people to get together, but it got a lot of really interesting people together on our committee to form and structure this. And Mo, you're part of that committee. You know that it's a great group.
Oh yeah.
And we just decided it was so much fun. We want to do it again. We've, I think we're past badge 370 now, right? So this is a big gathering, twice as big as it was a year ago. And of course, these two, the Fire in the Lake twins, are taking up huge amounts of credits or of the event tickets, right? We're signing up for them, but there's still just a tremendous breadth and depth of designers that are going to be there showing off their games, teaching their games. And I'm just couldn't be more excited about the group that we've all pulled together and the smoothness with which we've grown the convention to really double its size just a year ago or just 6 months ago.
Yeah. And I remember when we were first talking about the first one, you were like, I'm thinking about doing a digital one. Do you think it'll work? And everyone was kind of unsure about it, and because it's new waters, that we were traversing in at that point. But the Armchair Dragoons had done one. It did pretty well, and learned some things from that. And with each successive convention, people are learning more new things about the online presence and how to, host different events and how it works. And the best part about it is people are more receptive to it. And the actual best aspect, I think, is it brings in people from literally all over the world because there's no travel involved. So you can have people from all over easily join in.
Right.
I will tell you, just to feed into the Zoom thing. So I've been running a series of war games with a lot of congressional staffers lately. And, those guys are busy, but, 5 o'clock when they get off work, we've been running all sorts of war games for them to kind of get them onto various issues. And those results start to show up in hearings, so kind of interesting world, the Zoom thing.
It is. It really is. What about you, Volko? What have you been up to?
So it's on the a lot on that idea of Zoom and Discord and all the new tools that we've now kind of been forced to get used to has just opened up so many possibilities. So my local group that used to get together, Thursday nights in the evening and try and decide what to do and get a couple of hours of gaming in, we now have a regular, it's like a book club style gaming group, wargaming group, and we rotate choosing like what game are we all going to play, or what system or what genre are we all going to play for a few weeks. We play it and then we get together and talk about it book club style, and it's kept going. We're still going. We haven't even worked through all our list. I haven't even had a choice yet. I'm like waiting for my name to come up in the alphabet. So even when we start getting together again in person, which we're getting ready to do with vaccinations, we're going to keep this thing going. And of course, then people have joined us, like one guy's in Tokyo, so it means, we can do that. And so last night we had our session. We had been playing Imperial Struggle. And so we had our book club session, and we asked Ananda, and he graciously joined us to join in the conversation. We could talk about the game together, and there's the designers explaining why he did things this way or that way. We never would have done that if we were just getting together Thursday nights at somebody's apartment.
No,
well, there you
go. This look, the pandemic has been beyond horrible, and the results are we don't even know but it has definitely accelerated and changed culture. There's no question about that. And it certainly changed our culture. Like I said, I didn't know what a Zoom was other than the noise a plane makes or something. But now it's like, it's amazing how it's just changing business. It's changing. I mean, I have a gaming group. Guys know Uli Blenneman, right? Spielworks. So Uli, like about every 5-6 weeks, he gets a group. There's 4 Germans, and there's me and there's Dan Thoreau, who's over in like Colorado somewhere, and we've been playing. We played Westphalia twice. You need 6 players for that. So it's kind of like, we play at what time is it? It's usually like noon in my time, because it's like late afternoon Germany, and it's not so bad for Dan. And we've been playing these games. It's been kind of been a real hoot.
And then with Discord, and this bounces off of what we've learned from things like SD HistCon online. I noticed the Discord coin server where there's so much. It's not just people getting together to play; they're getting together to design and trade ideas, and it's producing publishable designs out of a server environment. So we have the same thing now for my Levian campaign series, and I'm spending as much time on that as anywhere else, because we have maybe a half dozen different designs going at various speeds. And so we're doing the play test and the development of my current game in that Inferno about medieval Italy, essentially all server based. So anybody who wants to join the server, it's an open server. You can come, you can participate, and we can, do everything collaboratively out in the open with a record as well. It's just amazingly powerful way to make an endeavor happen that is still not really a mass endeavor in the scale of mass media. We're still small fragments of society doing this, but we can find each other and work together and play together. It was already phenomenal, the steps we took forward in that in the 1990s, but what we've done just in the last year, I think it's absolutely a game changer.
Well, that's what it kind of reminds me of. You mentioned the 90s. It reminds me of, remember the old days of Genie and AOL and all that stuff, where people would be like, oh, wow, cool, I can play a game online with my friend in California. Well, this is the same thing, but it's just blown up into a really much bigger thing. And we have better tools now to do all these things, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and also when you tie it in with either, I mostly use Vassal, but there's also Tabletop Simulator. So you could be playing, I have 2, like right over here is another screen. So usually this is my big Vassal screen, which I'm going to use tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday. So I put the Vassal up here because I could see it better. And then over here is my video setup. and so I can talk to people, but they can see the moves, and it kind of works out. But the double monitor thing has definitely been a biggie.
Oh yeah. Just going through some of the comments here. CD is joining us from Taiwan, as we were just speaking about.
All right.
Connecting in from all over the world, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I see Calgary.
And Flipside says, I appreciate DigitalCon. I live pretty close to Mark and wouldn't be able to be there otherwise, so thanks for the effort.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Mo, you were talking about the fact that the calendar or the clock doesn't matter as much, right? That we can do this not just with locals under local timeframes, but we can expand it. One of the things that we had a couple of initiatives this time that we wanted to press, and we were only able to press one of those initiatives, and that was we're going to start measuring the diversity inside our convention in some way, and we've added Chris Bennett to the committee to help us do that, and I think we just if you want to improve a process, you have to measure it first, and I think that the idea is let's measure how much we have achieved diversity within the convention, and we want this to be the most diverse historical game convention it can be. And so we're working on that, and we've made great strides, but there's tremendous opportunities for improvement ahead. The other thing, though, related to the time is I continue to admire the games that are going on in Japan, and it's now available with Twitter so much, right? That if you follow a handful of Japanese gamers and you get this flow of interesting games, right? That I can't play because number one, I can't access them. Number two, I don't understand. I can't read.
Yeah, but I tell you that Google Translate, I have a bunch of followers and they'll post something. I can see it's about one of the picture, and then I go to Google Translate and I actually can read and I can actually reply to them, which is hysterical to me. I've gotten rules questions in at least 12 different languages, and of course I don't speak any of those languages, including English, by the way. And so I'm able to translate it into and actually respond, and it converts it into Croatian or Spanish or Russian or whatever, and Japanese and Chinese, and I mean that's a cool thing. I mean we're only like one step away.
Universal translator from Star Trek.
Exactly, you're thinking the same thing. You'll have Carol, my wife was a couple of years, actually several years ago, but we live right near the UN, and so she's down at the UN, and these two Japanese young ladies come up to her, and they speak into the thing, and it comes back and says, "Do you know where Bloomingdale's is?" I mean, that's literally what they said in Japanese, and then the computer, the phone, put it into English. She gave them directions how to get there, and then it went back out in Japanese to them. They said, "Thank you very much," and they went up to Bloomingdale's. So we're getting directions from Carol, and obviously she doesn't speak Japanese, and they didn't speak English, but everybody seemed to communicate fine. It's really going to be amazing.
So the progress on that second initiative is that we're trying to we're going to try to fold the Japanese component into the SD HistCon, and it would be great to do it face to face and get some Japanese gamers and maybe designers there to share games, right? How cool would that be if we can make that happen? But the internet allows us to achieve some of that, and not this con. Right, it was an initiative too far, but hopefully the next time we do this, we'll have a decent Japanese presence, which could be good fun.
Well, I had when I was back in Victory days, Hobby Japan was a very a close ally of Avalon Hill back in the day, and Mr. Sato and so I never forgot there was a game called Pacific Fleet, I think, and Bob Ryan and Mr. Sato wanted to see a Victory game. I was working a little bit on Pacific War at the time, which I was telling these guys I just finished the 79-page 33 scenario rule booklet just about an hour ago for the first get a full draft. And so they come in with this game, and so Bob Ryan and I sit down with these two Japanese designers who they spoke a few words of English and we spoke zero Japanese, obviously. And so we're playing this game. So I always do what I always do. I take it was a Guadalcanal scenario. I take the American fleet and I sail it into Rabaul. And that was and so they then take out this, dictionary and literally for 30 minutes they're going back and forth. And finally, the answer that came out of what happened was emergency sortie. That took 30 minutes to come out to translate their rules into. So apparently it was going to be a naval battle, even though I ran them into their harbor or something. And that was, I've had a lot of experiences with the Japanese players. They're great. And I actually learned a lot from them, because I was once at a convention in California, and there was a whole contingent showed up from Hobby Japan, and they were telling me how much they like Gulf Strike and, Pacific War and all this stuff. And I said, "Oh, you play it often?" And they go, "Well, we don't play it very often because, their homes every room in their home is convertible. Like, in other words, the room they eat in at night becomes the room they sleep in, so they have small apartments. And so they can't leave anything set up." And I learned a lot about the fact that you got to have short scenarios for certain parts of the world, because they just don't have the room, that a lot of people are accustomed to in the United States.
Yeah, that's why, 148th model kits, they became very popular in Japan because of the size constraints, or the room constraints that they have. So 135th, you can get like a 135th tank that's like maybe yay big. 148th is about yay big. So they can actually display more of their models in their small homes. So weird little things like that you learn from hobbies.
Yeah, but you only learn it when you talk to people and you find out how they live. I mean, that's really what I find that to be the best part, is like, you just realize that, I know Harold and I have, I don't do it anymore. I retired from it, but Harold still teaches. And I found that I had, the last time I taught, I had 106 students, and about half of them were Chinese nationals. And, the kids would come to me for advice, and mentorship and all that. And every so often, some kid would show you, they would show you some, their resume, and you'd make some comment, and they get a little bit defensive. And so my answer always was, what did your father say when you showed it to me? He goes, "Oh, he said the same thing you said." So, and I realized that committed parents say the same exact thing, no matter what the culture, no matter what the language. Committed parents say the exact same words to their kids. It doesn't matter. Language means nothing. It's like, "No, that's not a good resume, kid. You need to fix it." And your dad said so also, by the way.
Volko, you just, I'm going to bring it back to the national as opposed to the international, but you just took an interesting vacation in the footsteps of Blackbeard. You would give us a little bit of your itinerary?
Jill shot you? Oh, it's so sad.
Yeah, no. I mean, Jill is interested in getting into the RV-ing lifestyle, I guess. And so we rented one just to try it out for a while. And what we did is we did what I'm calling the Blackbeard circuit, as a research and inspirational trip for the hunt for Blackbeard, which still continues in my list of projects. But it's so we rented it. We're in Northern Virginia. We rented it in Petersburg, south of Richmond, and then drove it out onto the Outer Banks and went all the way down the Outer Banks, with a key objective being Ocracoke, where, of course, Blackbeard got hunted down in 1718, Battle of Ocracoke, and to go see a particular spot on that island that a local historian believes is a watering hole that existed in pre-Columbian times, even that Blackbeard would have used then. So his beach where he partied with his pirate friends, and the waters where he succumbed to the Royal Navy and the Virginians, the good guys. And then to sail those waters in our RV, which we did, because you take a ferry from Hatteras to Ocracoke, and then you take a ferry from Ocracoke to the mainland. And so you could see all the shoals and Teach's Hole Channel where the battle happened, on sailing the waters like a pirate sloop, but in our RV, which was just awesome. And then came up back through Bath, which was the colonial capital, Bathtown at the time, and Edenton, named for the governor that was thought to have been in cahoots with Blackbeard, Eden. But the Carolinians still loved him enough to name the town after him after he died, and found his grave and all that. I've got some good photos. I'm looking forward at some point soon to do a little mini tweet storm about it. But it was pretty inspirational for me to. I mean, it's kind of like you go into you walk in the nature trail to this beach, there's no markations about it being anything to do with Blackbeard or pirates or anything. It's only from reading the histories that you have the inkling of what happened there. But the way that this trail was constructed, the benches and the railings and everything, it all kind of looked like it was like piratical Disney set or something. It was like they had assembled the trail fixtures from driftwood or something. I mean, it was pretty cool.
That's cool.
The Pirates of the Caribbean ride.
Yeah, it was like for me, it was like, being 10 years old and going on the Pirates of the Caribbean or Swiss Family Robinson. It was that exciting, but I'm a war gamer, I guess.
Well, it sounds like you got enough content there that you could do like a companion book for The Hunt for Blackbeard when it's released.
Yeah, like anything else. I mean, the stories surrounding the period and the what led to the expedition against him, and how it was that he came to be in North Carolina, and all the politics between the Virginians and the Carolinians, and among the pirates, and among the authorities, and all this stuff is all pertinent to how the Navy ultimately was able to track him down, because you need financing, you need especially information, and that means you have to have enemies, and those enemies are political enemies largely, and economic enemies in some cases, and rivals of the pirate who has very powerful friends protecting him. So the pirates rely on sanctuary, and Blackbeard had that in North Carolina. So yeah, it could be like this. It could be like 100-page historical background book for a game that takes 45 minutes to play, which would be a little ridiculous, but there is that much interesting stuff behind it. It's just a tremendous hunt for stories, as well as hunt for the pirate in the game. That
is a really good show. I don't know if you've seen that, The Lost Pirate Kingdom on Netflix.
I've seen 2 episodes so far, but I like it's good stuff. I mean, those what do you call them, like they're not documentaries, but they're like
docudramas.
Yeah,
docudramas, whatever they call them. Yeah, they're kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, and then there's a part where it goes into what was ailing Blackbeard and the treatment that it's going to make you wince.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And there's some corroboration of that they've recovered from his, they've discovered his flagship, the Queen Anne's Revenge, as he called it, which went down off of what's now Beaufort, and was at that time in 1718, Fishtown, North Carolina. Fishtown, because it was like what you might imagine, like 3 shacks with fishermen living in it. But anyways, coming into that port, that ship got stuck on a sandbar, and they found the wreck site in the 90s, and they've since confirmed this is indeed Queen Anne's Revenge. And then they found on the medical implements on there, bearing out the theory of what he was suffering from, the treatment he was
suffering from. Help me out here. I don't know.
I'm not sure. We want to know, Mark.
Yeah,
I want to know. I got nothing else to do.
Syphilis.
What do you have?
Syphilis. Yeah, and mercury was one of the things they were looking for.
And I put that into the game because in the game, Blackbeard, you have various things you got to do or want to do to win, not just be a pirate. You're living your life, and one of them is he needs to hire a doctor. And all these things are out from the history, right? There's nothing made up from whole cloth. And I had on the little marker, syphilis.
Mm-hmm.
And my playtester said, don't put that in there. We don't want to play a game about syphilis, So
it was a big part of his life.
Yeah, I mean, it's accurate.
There's a lot of supposition that's why accurate.
He was. There's historical basis for it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily mean you use every detail. So I just changed it to sick.
Yeah, because there was supposition. That's what partly led to him being so aggressive towards the end of his life.
And by the way, like everything else, it's controversial. There are historians who don't buy that there's really evidence of syphilis at all. So
yeah. By the way, I have to. Why not? I have to mention Berg. Berg's Blackbeard game. And don't forget, there's an unspeakable acts table. Holy Berg can put an unspeakable acts table into a game.
So that old chestnut is saying that Mark is in the haunted house again, where the door randomly opens and closes by itself. I might have to tune out so he can sleep tonight.
I'm not sure that's scarier than the syphilis discussion.
Yeah, no, this is-
As much as I want to continue that, Vocal, I will ask, what's the verdict on the RV lifestyle? What do you think?
We got a lot of good information. I think we're leaning towards, she's leaning towards smaller rather than larger. So that's important. And probably waiting a little later for some family reasons. But it was definitely good to do the field test. We're thinking of maybe something like the machine that Uwe Eichert has, his Mercedes Airstream that he showed me at PresCon last year. Maybe something like that someday, but those are pricey, so we'll see.
Well, so you're saying that you and Jill had a fairly large RV? I don't know much. I know what an RV is.
It was 25-foot C-class, not even that large, and even that was larger than she preferred.
Wow.
Yeah.
What about gaming space?
Well, so here you go. You need connectivity. Right?
TTS, yes.
That's really the issue, not physical space. And
True.
even for design, this is the thing. I mean, all my design used to be with trace paper and pens and scissors and tape and stuff like that. Design via Vassal and Discord is the way to go. I mean,
it is great, but what about the whole tactile thing? When you're actually able to touch the game and
I like to push back. First off,
yeah, go ahead.
The key part is I lack a lot of skills. Like I don't have all that. I know how to use it. I know how to use Excel really well and PowerPoint, Word, all that. I mean, I'm not an iconoclast, but when it comes to the graphic stuff, I mean, I can do simple, box and line kind of stuff. But I got a light table. I got some maps. I'm knocking that stuff out, and I get some help from I can still make handmade counters if I have to, which I do, and I can get a game. But I can get a physical prototype of a game done like in 48 hours, even if it's a big game. Whereas if I had to go through all that computer stuff, that would take me like a month. I mean, it's just too slow for me. And I throw out the design so quickly that it's not even useful to try to figure it out on the computer until I get something that I really like.
Yeah.
So I understand if you have those skills and you like that stuff, but I
mean, what I'm finding is once I get the electronic, and it maybe takes me about the same amount of time, I guess, making changes and getting those changes to play testers is much faster. So I end up doing iterations all the time.
Oh, that's the problem. I don't use play testers.
Yeah, well then,
Mark also doesn't use iterations.
If you're like Mark Herman or Mozart or somebody like that, what do you mean test? It's perfect. Don't displace a note. But the rest of us, it's wonderful to have that electronic thing. But what you mentioned, Mo, about the tactile, we're not going to let go of that, right? And
no.
We're not going to and you're still. In fact, this came up in the conversation with Mike Club and Ananda last night about the experience playing Imperial Struggle on Vassal versus physical, and the Vassal is wonderful because the module keeps track, it does all the counting for you.
Yeah.
And that game has a lot to consider with every move. There are so many interlocking parts. How are you faring in different aspects in different parts of the world is an important part of gameplay. And the Vassal module just makes that really, really easy. So that's great. However, you have to design to be able to play physical. And you don't want to lose that. And I want to still always be able to spread out my vista, my panoply out on the table and see it, 360 degrees in 3D. And we're not going to let go of that, but we have tools to get to that and to share that and develop that more readily. That's all.
So I got to tell you, let me just be contrarian just because I can, what the hell. I would offer that, first of all, I really like Imperial Struggle and I played it. What I find, look, there's John over in, hey, John. I like John. Good man. What I find is that I can't really see the board that well on a Vassal. I mean, I have a gigantic, right over here, I have this gigantic screen. Like I can put Vassal up and, I can zoom in and all that. But somehow my mind's eye can see a board, maybe it's just because I've been doing it for so long. I can see the Imperial Struggle board physically much faster. And by the way, I mean, maybe it's just me, but I can add up in my head really fast. I mean, I can go, oh, look, there's 8 flags. I can figure that out versus 6 flags. I don't need a computer to tell me that. Besides, it's good for your brain, by the way. To just keep doing that. Like when I play, a lot of people will tell me, what's a game like? Like even like Churchill, like everything's based on base 6. So I go, okay, everything's 3. So that's plus 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 10. That's plus 30. I mean, I can do numbers very fast in my head. The computer actually doesn't. It's nice. But
yeah, I mean, the straw man is, we don't want the physical, and we're not going to do the physical. And that's not it. I don't think that's where we want. That's where we are. That's not what we're proposing. We do want to do that. And in fact, when you're testing, and I'm conscious of this too, you should not, as a best practice, as a designer, developer, playtest team, you should not rely solely on electronic means to test something when the product is physical, because we know that it has happened, and I know this has happened with a specific game, that you don't think of something like how many counters of this do you need, whereas in the electronic you can generate as many as you want, right? How many go in the counter mix? And you need to, again, unless you're Mozart or Herman, you need to actually test the physically, right, to make sure it works and looks good and all that, because the electronic is still a facsimile. It's still a model of, and the core product for us, for all the reasons we've been talking about that we love, at the end of the day, yes, you want to hold that box in your hand. You want to have those components, and you want to be able to play the experience. And we're designing towards that. I'm not designing my games to be electronically played. Ananda said the same thing. He said there's a temptation to then design your board game thinking that 90% of the people are going to be playing it on TTS or Vassal or something like that, and so you just design it for them. But that is a misstep. We're designing board games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would tell you that the thing that I liked about TTS and what annoys me about TTS, that's Tabletop Simulator for those that didn't pick that one up, is they've tried to create the physical environment. Vassal is just a straight like wallpaper application.
Right.
Tabletop Simulator, it's annoying sometimes because you're trying to manipulate something like in 3D space, like with physics, and my hand is a lot more competent than I am with a mouse to try to pick up a piece and flip it over or whatever the hell you got to do. And these TTS tries to simulate that. But I'll tell you that I've been testing, Pacific War, and actually when I say testing, that's not the right word. I've been setting it up. I mean, I actually made. We got the counter mix, and GMT was kind enough to make 3 actual, it wasn't Blue Panther, but it was like another one of these print and play crowds. I have 3 sets of the physical counters, and that's the only way I could ever do the setups and check them. It's just I could never do it on a computer. I just have to physically find the piece, set it up, and also you have to go through the misery of it just to understand. Can I create a better, interface in the rules so you can set this thing up better? The answer is I just decided in Pacific War I'm just going to torture the hell out of everybody so they hate me forever. That's my plan actually. It's going to work out.
Oh, speaking of torturing everybody, weren't you talking about a little booklet thing that you had that you were working on before we went live for your scenario book?
You mean my
that you wanted to show off?
Oh yeah. So here it is. Anybody thought? There it is. 79 pages with 33 scenarios, and now here's just like one page of setups. Let me see if it gets. There you go. There's setups. I mean, I'm telling you, I would never. What I'm going to do I'm so looking forward to playing Empire of the Sun online with the guys tomorrow on Saturday, because that's why I designed Empire of the Sun. That's freaking painful.
See, now this is where you could say that when you have something like Vassal, you can just load up the scenario and it's all set up for you. But somebody has to set it up to get there.
I got to tell you, there is a Pacific War Vassal set, and what I have found is it doesn't help you much because you still have to set it up. The game gives you these guys go here, but you got to put them in task forces. You got to pull them around.
Oh yeah,
way more painful than the counters once you get them set up. What I find with Pacific War is you have to organize. It's like when you play, even when you play Fire in the Lake. I mean, if you keep the decks, you keep the cards so you can quickly set up the deck, and you you segregate the pieces. So I do the same thing in Pacific War. So there are certain scenarios I play over and over again. I have the Guadalcanal scenario, which I play all the time. I have the pieces set up for that in a separate tray, so I can do that very quickly. I can't do that for any scenario, but I play the ones I like to play. I can do that pretty fast.
What about you, Harold? Where do you lean?
Well, look, first, I'm worried about the value of my Victory Games copy of the Pacific War, which is reprint coming out. And Mark, you said you would guarantee that it would stay at the current value. Is that what you told me earlier?
Yep, it's worth what it was before, 0.
0.
Yep, still worth 0.
Yeah, that's.
In fact, you'll have to pay somebody to take it from you now, so it'll cost you money.
Yeah, I've got 2 copies of that, and I've got 2 copies of Vietnam that I need to get rid of quick. And I saw John Krantz in the comments too. He's also destroying the value of my my old war games single-handedly as he goes through and prints new versions of Korea, which I've got here on my table beside me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
the new one or the old Victory Games?
What's that?
The new Korean War or the old one?
I just got my copy of the new one from
nice
from the Kickstarter. Yeah, it's pretty
I gotta
cool.
tell you, I've been playing the heck out of 2 games lately. Bayonets and Tomahawks, really good. Although I gotta tell you, I've also been playing Wilderness War, so I have a very fond spot there, Volko.
I think Mark Rodriguez is actually with us here.
He is.
Yeah, and Harold, the other game I've been playing, which I'm really impressed with, is Jerry White's Atlantic Chase. That's really good stuff.
Yeah,
Harold's now.
Yeah, no, it's sitting beside me in shrink. It took 2 of us to carry it downstairs. Talk about density inside of a game box.
You can't see it behind me. You see that light back there? The Bismarck is running amok in the Atlantic over there.
Nice.
So.
Yeah, the Bayonets and Tomahawks was a real joy to play. I have to tell you, while I enjoyed the American Revolution, right, that all starts about 1763 for me. So I've missed much of the 7 Years' War in North America. But, Mark's map, I think more than any other map, with all due respect, Volko, really helps me orient. Right. So, because I know it from like Boston South, and it really helps me orient. He just did a phenomenal job. And it's the gift of having being graphics oriented when you start the design, right? I see Simonich does that as well, and it just it just leads to a wonderful game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I just did a preview of that today. I just released it today, and I haven't been able to get it to the table because I just got that and Atlantic Chase in. So, and also got the Samurai one in. So, got to get all those out and then hopefully get them on the table here pretty soon.
Volko, have you played Bayonets and Tomahawks?
I only played it long ago with Mark. I have my copy and I've been pawing over it, but like you guys, I've not had a chance to either get that or Atlantic Chase to the table.
Well, what I like about Atlantic Chase is it is a very interesting take on how to handle. Volko and I came from a certain world, and my expertise was in like what they call ISR systems. So I'm very steeped in that stuff, and circular, and how tracking something and losing it, and all that kind of stuff. And I think he has really found a very clever solution. But what I found most interesting is he had the same inspiration that I had, but for a different game. So in other words, if you go to London, you go to Churchill's bunkers, right? And he's got this war bunker, and there's this amazing room, which was his map room, and it's also his cabinet meeting room, right? So there's a small, and it's not a very big room, by the way. In fact, my office here is probably only, it's smaller than, but not much smaller than the room that they basically ran the war from. And they had a little table, and they all sat around the table, and all the walls are maps. And so what I did when I did Churchill is the whole, the right side of the map, the war part, is meant to look like what they were looking at on the ground, right? On the other hand, he was looking at the convoys where they would take a piece of string and pins and draw it across, because they were all on radio silence, so they can't, and there's no satellites. And so unless an airplane can see where they are and report back, these guys, they knew they should be around here, that kind of thing. Great book to read, by the way, very short, is C.S. Forrester's Sink the Bismarck, which is a novelization, but it's pretty, it's based on the real facts, but it's a novelization of it. And you really get a sense of, they're always trying to say, well, Bismarck could be here, it could be over here. And that game gives you that sense of not knowing. Now, the flip side, going back to bayonets and tomahawks, the thing that I always felt that game really gets across is, I feel like there's two empires, the scene between two empires, the French and the British Empire in North America, and it's raiding going across that border and all the fighting on that line. And, so when these games evoke this kind of narrative of searching for a guy in the Atlantic or trying to feel like what it's like to be fighting along this very uncertain border, I feel like they've really done something, significant. So I'm really pleased with, I'll tell you, my hats off to Mark and Jerry for phenomenal job.
No doubt. And Mark was on with Dan Pancaldi with the Canadian panel right before this to kick off the SD Hist Con, and Mark was in full regalia from the period. So, Volko, you once told me something very interesting, that when you design for a period, you listen to the music. I don't know if you write with the same writing implements of the age.
Method designing.
You seek out food from the period.
Whatever. Yeah. Well, this is the thing. I mean, because people, I think, play games for different reasons and different kinds of fun, and it's not just necessarily one reason, but we might have an emphasis, and it might be social, and it might be competition, it might be puzzle solving, and for me, it's tourism. It's time travel, and so I want to be transported in a safe and a comfortable way to these different places and times. And so if you have the other senses engaged through music or through food or incense or whatever, and it helps objects that are on that time on the table, everything.
Volko, avoid syphilis, though.
I was just gonna say, how deep are you getting into it with the Blackbeard game?
Mark brings us back. Yeah, thanks.
He's like
Mark.
the Daniel Day-Lewis of designers over here. He's really getting into it.
My left foot. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing I've noted about playing games with Mr. Herman is his mastery of the history, regardless of what the game is. He and I played Sakagahara in LA, probably the last game we played together, right before the pandemic and all.
That's right. Yeah, I think you're right.
And your command of the history of a history that's very obscure to me, because I just I'm not exposed to it, haven't read about it, was just extraordinary. And it's like you talk about it like you're there. It reminds me of Mark Miklos, right? I mean, if you've spent any time with Mark Miklos, and you close your eyes, he's telling you about the battle because he was there. And I think Mark Herman does some of that.
That was very kind. I will tell you that Sakagahara, though, was, I did with Berg, we did Great Battles of History. We did a bunch, Ron and the other one. And, it's Oda Nobunaga and those guys, they're just fascinating crowd. I mean, and by the way, vicious boys. I mean, oh my God. they put the hurt, the mean and hurt or something. I mean, they are tough boys. I mean, it's an impressive crowd. But I find that I decided after all these years, it took me a long time to figure this out. I'm actually a historian who happens to be a game designer. I'm not a game designer who's a historian. I'm the other way around. So for me, the history, I guess when I first got out of full-time work, I started toying around with trying to do a popular Euro game, and I had no appetite for it. I probably have no talent for it either, by the way, just to be clear. But regardless, I had no appetite for it. I just didn't care, and if I don't care, I'm not going to do it. So I just went back to what I love, and the hell with it.
Well, you're doing kind of the opposite of what a Euro game is. You're coming up with a theme in the history, and you're designing the mechanics around that, rather than just designing a bunch of mechanics with some points and then slapping a theme on it that sounds like it'll fit.
No, that's really been, that's been my biggest problem is like, unlike others, I've never been able to do a series set of games because I look at every situation sort of as a unique experience. And I've just never been able to sort of say, oh, well, this is like that. And I kind of think I've done a couple of Empire to Sun variants. I did one, which was the same situation, but only earlier. That doesn't quite count. But that was Plain Orange was a lot of fun to do. But, that system's just not going to transport over to even Europe per se. Maybe the
Well, you have Gettysburg and Waterloo.
Well,
kind of almost a series.
Yeah, well, Rebel Fury is going to be a series.
Didn't you have some involvement in Great Battles of History?
I did, but see, here's the thing. Do you notice that like none of the volumes are the same? That's the problem.
Oh, that's not true.
Well, no,
you get
any commonality between the volumes, that's Berg, not me. Because Berg was good at trying to force that on me, but I was like always fighting it. And then he decided, and then we just gave up entirely. He went down to the limb system, and he wanted to do like all sorts of crazy stuff, and I just said, what the hell? He did, when we did Line of the North, I was like it was Great Battle of the History, but only by title. It had nothing to do with the other games practically. But it's held up. We did that. I did Alexander like in Jesus Christ, it was like 1991, 1990. That's like a billion years ago.
Yeah. It is a billion years ago.
I got a new series coming up though. I'm taking all of that knowledge. It'll be in C3I, and Roger would kill me if I say, but I am going to be doing an ancient series, but it's going to be very different. But it's going to take all of that Great Battles of History knowledge. I'm going to boil it down to, 20 minutes of fun, hopefully. Well, maybe hopefully, but 20 minutes anyway.
Nice.
That sounds great.
Well, I'm excited about it. We're working on it.
So, Mark, what are you doing at the con? What's your schedule?
I have, as far as I know, other than unless you've got me some other coffee session kind of thing, I've got East Coast time, so it's 9:00 your time, but at noon on Saturday, we're going to play Empire of the Sun for a couple hours, and then on Sunday at the same time, East Coast time, noon, I'm going to play For the People for a couple of hours. That's the plan. Volko's probably doing Nevsky follow-ons or something, I'm guessing, without even guessing at it.
He's so predictable, that Volko.
And what you could do also, you could probably squeeze one more event in. You could probably do a Pacific War setup and then do the play in the next convention.
Yeah, that's pretty much. Well, you know what it is? I was telling my wife, I said, this game, Pacific War, is a game I could not design now. I was 34 when I did that game, and I could do that game at 34. And what's kind of cool is my 2-year-old daughter, who was there when I did Pacific War, it just so happens my 37-year-old daughter, who's the same person, was here as I finish it the second time. So she's living with us. So she's been there for the whole saga somehow.
Does she say something like, Dad, don't you think you're kind of stuck in a rut?
She says that all the time anyway. So
are you ever going to finish that thing, Dad?
No, I said to her, no. This is definitely the last time I'm touching this game. So you get your copies now because I ain't touching it again. This is it.
So, Mark, the way you run these sessions, you do some teaching to open, and then you.
No, actually, what I like to do is, one of the comments I see on BGG around any game, but particularly anything I've ever done that's more of the advanced game, is people are afraid to move the first piece. I find it to be, it's like almost like it's a freeze or flight kind of function in gamers.
Analysis paralysis out of the gate.
Yeah, they look at the rules and I go, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I maybe I'll play it wrong and all that. And I every time I see them, I said, look, set it up, play a card, do it, reset up, play the card again. You do it 2 or 3 times, you'll basically get the whole game will come clear to you. Then you play a second card. But it's like, that's how I learn any game. I usually, any game, in fact, good example, I was playing, after playing Bayonets and Tomahawks, I wanted to play Wilderness War. I hadn't played it in a while. And so I set it up. And, after I played 2 cards, I realized I had screwed up at least 2 rules, and I just reset it up again and played it again. I didn't care. And pretty quickly I had the game back down again. So that's how you learn. I mean, so what I'm going to do with the Empire of the Sun one, for example, we're going to set up. I'm going to have a vassal set up. We're going to deal out some cards, and I'm going to say to the crowd, "Okay, here's your card." That was a bug I just killed. Here are your cards. Which one do you want to play first, and what do you want to do? And then they're going to go, well, I don't know. So, well, let's try this. And once you move the pieces, it all just kind of falls together. It's not that hard, but you gotta get past that. I'm afraid to do something part, which I've never had a problem with personally. I just don't care. Just push pieces and see what happens.
When you're afraid of doing something, just remember 2 words: Leroy Jenkins. If anybody's seen that video, you'll know what I'm talking about.
I haven't, but it sounds great anyway.
Oh, you got to look it up. It's awesome. There was a guy, they were playing Warcraft or something, one of these online games, and the guy's like, "Oh, we're going to do this." They're plotting their thing, and this one guy goes, "All right, guys, let's do this. Leroy Jenkins." And he runs in and just drags the whole party into this thing, and they all get slaughtered because he didn't care. He's just like, "We're just going in and fighting."
Well, I always call it, Berg had a magazine called Berg's Review of Games. I think it was called Brog. Yep. Yeah, and I for a while I was doing, he'd code me, "I want you to do a review for me." I said, "Fine." And so the way I tested any game I'd never played before, I remember I did Natanicow, and which was it's like a Guadalcanal. It's one of the tactical Guadalcanal MMP games now, right? It wasn't MMP then. It was like the Gamers or something like that.
The Gamers,
Yeah. So my thing is I call it Pickett's Charge. And so I just grab, first thing I will do in any game that I don't know, like particularly the period, I'll discharge machine guns. Now, if the machine guns don't wipe my guys out, the game's not very good. If my guys get wiped out, I go, okay, I'm interested. Now Now let's see if I can not charge the machine guns, see what else I can do. But if you can charge machine guns and you make it easily, then the game's got some problems. So I always test the game by just doing the stupidest frontal assault I can come up with, see what happens, and based on that, I can usually get a good sense of what the game's doing. It's just a quick way of analyzing it. And if that works, and it shouldn't work, then you go, okay, what's wrong? If it doesn't work, you go, okay, I got some respect here. Now let's see what else we can do. So that's how I learn any game. I just charge.
Yeah, I kind of figure I'm going to play a game multiple times anyway. Yeah. And I really don't care about screwing it up. And that's exactly what I did with Bayonets and Tomahawks, right? I set up that first scenario that's in the playbook, played a few turns of that, and then just went crazy. Mm-hmm. And I learned a lot, made a lot of mistakes.
Like in Bayonets Bayonets and Tomahawks, the problem I ran in, I played it the first time and I was barely, I probably made 20 mistakes, so that's not even a valid playthrough. But one of the things I found was all of a sudden I had like this very big stack of provincials and British guys, and I just went straight up, to Ticonderoga. And I'm saying to myself, how do the French stop this? So I reset up, and then I started playing the French differently. So it's like an action-reaction thing, even in my own brain.
Right.
But the thing that I found interesting, the history, like I already was getting ready to, Mark Rodriguez is going to probably hate me in 2 minutes. I apologize, Mark. I love your game, by the way. But you know why the provincials didn't want to operate with the British Army in the first years of the war, of the French and Indian War? There's a very simple, very strange reason, but provincials didn't want to operate with the British. Do you know the reason?
If you're asking Mark, he can't reply.
No, I know the answer, so I'm going to answer it. When you were a provincial, and if you were operating with a British unit, you were under British Army discipline. That means that all the crap that the provincials would do, they just get their backs flogged off by some, officer. So they never wanted to operate with the British Army because they would have had to be under British. And also, provincial officers were basically like an ensign in the British Army would outrank George Washington as a colonel. I mean, a lieutenant colonel anyway. And so they didn't want to operate with them. So the fact that you can put together certain stacks early in the war is, you could see why that could be a problem. But historically, that's a problem. Now Wilderness War does account for that a little bit more with the the provincial. You have like a provincial track, don't you, Volko, where the province, they're with you and without you, positive, negative.
It's how enthusiastic they are about coming in.
So,
That's right.
so there are accords that reflect the fact that they're not very enthusiastic, which is right. The enthusiasm is not about the war; it's about operating with the British, because getting executed for like stealing a piece of bread or not having an unclean button and they flog you 20, 80 lashes is just not that much fun.
There's a response from Mark.
True. There you go.
Yeah,
There you go.
I agree with you, Mark.
Yeah, the challenge for me with that game is the multiple layers in the victory or in the combat resolution. So
Cool.
trying to figure out the learning experience was trying to figure out what to come to battle with, right, to do well and under the circumstances. But that's
the
life.
basic answer is in all things bring a little bit of everything. Like same as Empire of the Sun is no difference.
Yeah.
If you bring like a unbalanced force and you run into a balanced force, you start to find problems. If you run into you bring a balanced force to any fight, you might not win, but you may not get crushed because you'll have, some options.
Mhm.
So Volko, what are you doing something interesting for the con over 3 days?
Several things that I'll be participating in. The main one that I'm leading is Nevsky, which I have done. I did last time, and I've done it BiataCon, which was another online con hosted in Spain, and in other venues. And I have had pretty good results with showing and teaching that and Hunt for Blackbeard online. So that's already now, fairly cut and dried. But the experiment this time, it's partly as an experiment to see how it will go, and to learn to do it better. And it's partly to entertain me, because when you do these demos and learning games, you're generally doing the short scenarios. And so what we're going to do this time instead is we're going to do the full Crusade on Novgorod scenario, or try to, and do it in group play, somewhat demo fashion. I'm going to presume a little more knowledge at this point so that we can move a little more sprite with less exposition, but still some exposition. And by group play, I mean that we're going to, as in the demos, talk about what we're doing on each side. Or it's not going to be an emphasis on secrecy and competition and that sort of thing, as much as being able to see how the game proceeds and what the stories and what the decisions and dilemmas are that each side faces. And the idea will be to play the, I hope, full length scenario over 3 sessions. So it'll be, I guess, West Coast time, 9 a.m. to noon, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But because the idea will be to have it be in the group format, nobody has to commit 9 hours if they don't want to, right? They can come and go, and it should work fine. So we'll see. So that's the main thing, to see if we can actually get from 1240 to 1242 in Nevsky online, which would, I think, in a group format. So that would be the first. And then lots of other events going on in the later hours. So tomorrow, after Nevsky, a little bit after that, we're going to have a demo that I'm going to show up for as much as I can of another game in the Levian campaign series that is not by me in this case, but is one of those that is underway on the Levian campaign design server. And it's by Francisco Pacogradija, and it is called Plantagenet, and it is the Wars of the Roses in the same game system, well, related, again, with changes for the era, Wars of the Roses using the Nevsky core system. And so that's going to be demo style as well. So it's just going to be to, in effect, introduce this developmental design to the world. So that'll be tomorrow afternoon. And then I think, as you know, I'm going to listen in on this wonderful, I expect to be really interesting, Zenobia set of game presentations that Chris has put together. And then also we'll be joining in on a conversation with Liz Davidson about gaming difficult subjects.
Sounds like you got a full docket.
Yeah, that's a lot, and that didn't. Well, and I know you're not finished, Volko, because we got the GMT games,
and of course, there'll be GMT games as well. So I'll be there.
Right.
For
What is
that.
that, by the way?
It's It's Saturday, and it's 9 o'clock your time, 6 p.m. Pacific.
6 p.m. West Coast. Okay, good.
Yeah, 6 p.m. Pacific, and you can, if you go to the GMT room, you'll be able to pick up the Zoom link, and I'll also try to email you a copy. But
Cool.
a lot going on, and it's Gene Billingsley is going to give his state of the state address at that point. And then he's asked for a lot of designers to show up, and I think the two of you, of course, GMT designers, but also a host of others from Jerry White to Mark Miklos. So it'll be a great group of designers and some interesting discussion of what's going on. Hey, Mo, in closing, I kind of wanted to go through the schedule and just mention a few names and events, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So with the convention, I wanted to go through a few days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all day starting at 8 a.m. So every day we're going to have a coffee with Harold and Mark and Volko. I hope you two can stop by before you start your events. And Mark, you're not required to, as we've decided you're not an employee. You're here on your own goodwill, and I don't owe you any money for that. I wanted that to be recorded and in public. But then we've got Volko's Levian campaign, of course, starts at 9. I'm interviewing Mark McLaughlin first thing at 9 o'clock. And of course, that you can come watch if you want and ask questions of Mark, but at the same time, I'm going to record that and make that available both on the Harold on Games podcast and on the Harold or the Cons social media or YouTube channel. Uwe Eichert at 11 o'clock is going to talk about Academy Games and what's going on there. He and I spoke a great deal over the last couple of weeks about increasing costs of inputs for games, right? Increasing costs of paper, caused by a host of reasons that are beyond this convention. But the end result is that, if you post a game, whether it's Kickstarter or otherwise, and then fulfill it later, you take a great deal of risk that the cost may increase during that time. And I think game companies are feeling that as we speak. So some interesting stuff going on there. David Thompson's going to share his most recent Undaunted add-on, Undaunted Reinforcements. Revolution Games is here, and they're going to do demonstrations of a lot of their games, including the Deadly Woods, which is Ted Racer's system applied to the Bulge. And Revolution is also, for participants in the con, going to give people a discount, as is Blue Panther and associated companies. So that's pretty cool. Jason Matthews is going to do Red Sea Conflict in the Horn of Africa. So that's an application of the Twilight Struggle games, and pretty cool. Let's see. Wow, just tons of stuff. I'm just trying to pick out a few for you. Mike Berticelli is going to do his Wolfpack, the North Atlantic Convoy Struggles, on Friday in the afternoon. Morgan Guillaume-Rotte is going to discuss Hubris in the afternoon on Friday. Trevor Bender is going to do a competition, a tournament for Labyrinth, a game that he and Volko have worked together on over time. John Butterfield, of course, Space Corp Ventures on Friday. Then, as Volko mentioned, the discussion of the Zenobia Award. Something I'm excited about, I don't know if I have the time to watch, but Jerry White and Gina Willis are going to talk about Skies Above Britain, the Skies Above the Reich application that's on, I believe, on P500 now at GMT. Mm-hmm. So let's see what else. Ryan Howland's doing White Eagle Defiant. And then Mo and I meet again at 7 p.m. Pacific time to do a wrap, and with other special guests. Not that these two aren't the specialists, and of course their matching shirts reinforce that. But yeah, it's been really cool having Mark and Volko here. We appreciate you guys taking the time. I know it's late where you are, but really appreciate your support of the con over all these years, and certainly this weekend. So thanks again, and thank you, Mo, for running the show here.
Oh, thanks for letting me be involved, and had a lot of fun at the physical convention, and now we're having fun at the digital convention. And of course, unfortunately, we can't all be together, but it's still great to see Volko and Mark here. Unfortunately, we're not able to just hang out and drink some whiskey and talk trash, but we can at least enjoy it digitally.
Yep.
So with that, we're going to end the night, everybody. And if you've not signed up, unfortunately, everything's sold out. Is it not, Harold?
It is. It's sold out. I think we just crossed badge 380 and have sold out. We're about twice as big as we were last time. But still, want to maintain a cap so that we can maintain quality of the event for everybody. So pretty excited. But yeah, it was very cool. It's good seeing you, Mo, and the event before with Dan Pancaldi. I enjoyed with the Canadian designers. Designers plus Morgan. Morgan is not Canadian, of course, but that was a really cool panel as well, and looking forward to more of that.
Well, she's still living in Canada, right?
Living in Canada, yes.
Yeah, and she's French, so you could say French Canadian, truly French Canadian.
Just not to her.
Yes, that's right.
Oh, I know. Yeah. But so we're going to end the show here, everybody. And tomorrow night we'll be back here, as we will also be on Saturday night. Tomorrow morning is when the con kicks off with the Coffee with Harold, and it will kick off every morning with Coffee with Harold, and it will end every night with the after show here with Harold and I and some different guests. So make sure that you tune in every night. If you're not able to get to the con, you're still able to come here and enjoy these shows and any other shows that happen to be on YouTube as well. So everybody, thanks for tuning in and really appreciate it. And we will see you guys tomorrow night. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, guys. See y'all tomorrow.